What up, y'all? Back here with another video for you. I have a collection update of some random things here today. Bunch of stuff that I've picked up over the past, I honestly couldn't tell you how long, couple of months. And it's nothing too extreme, really, but it's a lot of cool stuff as far as I'm concerned. So we're just going to get into it because I don't need to bring a preface in this for nothing. So check out the Sodom hoodie first off. Got this killer Agent Orange hoodie for Christmas, and I did not get enough stuff for Christmas to justify an update. So one of them is in here. So I will just talk about that when it comes. And we're listening to Cyberfort's album Quintessence in the background. If you guys are familiar with this band, they're a really good Quebecois black metal band, kind of atmospheric ambient black metal, somewhere in that general vicinity. Fits very well into the scene. Really, kind of low and slow and staticky, very Burzum-y, which you would probably imagine from the style. We're not drinking a beer, so I'm just gonna get into it. First thing I got here is Dragon with the album On Dragon's Wings. This is actually an EP from 1998, and if you guys aren't familiar with this band, they are from California, and they put out this one EP back in the day and then cut on out of here, and they came back. They released a new album last year, which I was just made privy to today. Probably won't bother listening to it, to be honest with you, but this is a No Remorse reissue. So this is an album that I've had on my want list for a good long while, and I wound up so like last year I made a big cart on High Roller Records trying to track down a bunch of kind of rarities, random things that aren't the most easy thing to get a hold of here in America. So instead of purchasing it and paying like $60 for the shipping, which is what it would have accumulated to be, other than getting it all one fell swoop like I would have preferred, I've been tracking it down piece by piece, and I have only a handful of things left out of that cart that I still need to actually purchase. And this is a big one out of those. And yeah, I picked this up off of Amazon, and I actually got it for Christmas from, so my mom uses my Amazon account, and it just shipped to her house, and I was just like, throw it in my stocking. So yeah, so I got this, and if you're not familiar with the EP itself, it is kind of like a heavy power metal album, somewhere in that general vicinity. 88's kind of like a good in-between year as far as that goes, and it is really a lot more. It really leans a little bit more on the power side. I would say there's almost some thrashy elements to this, like more of the groovy side of thrash, not so much of like the super fast, skank beat kind of stuff. But some of the tunes on here, I believe it is Heaven's Call. There's basically a thrash beat in there, and it's a really raw recording, and it fits really well with like the kind of mosh riff, thrash riffs that are in here. It's really a solid record all around. I would highly recommend you pick this up if you guys haven't heard this, or at bare minimum go listen to it, because look at that album cover, dude. How do you say no? So that'll be Dragon. Next, I have a couple of proto metal records in here too, and this is going to be one of them. This is Shades of Deep Purple. This is the debut Deep Purple album from 1968, and this is really before they really realized how good they could actually be. I mean, like, look at that photo. That is 1968, if I ever seen it. Wild stuff. Rod Evans is singing in this band, and if you don't know Rod Evans, he was one of the founding members of this band and got booted. Don't exactly remember why, or ever. Actually, I don't think I ever knew why he got booted out of the band. And then he went and founded Captain Beyond and was in that band for maybe 2 or 3 years. And then I don't really know. He hasn't done much since, other than a tour with like impersonation of Deep Purple, I should say, not a tribute. He got brought into a band and toured as Deep Purple when it was no original members besides him, and then they got in a whole bunch of controversial trouble in 1980 for that happening. But if you guys haven't heard this album, it's really just like a psyched out blues rock album. It's not super heavy. It's not what you want out of your Deep Purple, but if you are a fan of that kind of psychedelic Blue Cheer-esque style stuff, I think you get down with that, because this really sounds a lot more like Blue Cheer than it does Deep Purple. But nonetheless, it's worth a listen if you are a Purple fan and if you like more stuff than just extreme metal. This one's not super extreme either. This is a new wave of British heavy metal album I'm a big fan of. This is Time Tells No Lie by Prang Mantis. I have been wanting this forever. This is another thing that was on my my want list from the High Roller Records cart, and it is so much fun. It's not really on the heavier side of I broke the case already. It is not on the heavier side of the new wave of British heavy metal, so much so that they aren't on the metal archives, which I find mildly infuriating. I'm not going to lie to you. They're a bit of sticklers about stuff like that, and then they'll allow like neo-folk bands to be on there, and I'm like, you guys are clowns. What do you think you're doing? But if you're not familiar, it's kind of a little bit heavier version of somewhere between Thin Lizzy and Blue Oyster Cult. It kind of does that and then kind of takes it with like a bit of a heavy metal attack. They do the song All Day and All of the Night on here, which is kind of a pretty well-known tune, I would say. But otherwise than that, it really just maintains a really good hypermelodic twin guitar harmony style to it. It really does sit pretty well into the hard rock camp, but leaning more towards the heavy metal. You know, if this would have came out in like 1977, I think you could have probably just put it in the proto metal section. But because it is considered a new wave of British heavy metal album, I consider it a heavy metal album. So I'm going to stick it with that, and that's called Prang Mantis. Really, really good. Next is something I picked up exclusively off the recommendations of the guys from Heavy Metallurgy, particularly Marty. He is a big fan of this band. This is Elixium by Fields of the Nephilim. So if you're not familiar, this is kind of a goth rock band, a peculiar sound for sure. They kind of have like a Western thing going on, but mixing it with like goth rock. It's very, very weird. It's a different contrast. I see how stuff like this could have been an influence on bands like the Coffin Shakers and things of that ilk, which is not exactly a really big style in general. But it's a cool record. It's got an odd atmosphere to it. The kind of spaghetti western goth thing is, they just mix in such a oil and water way, but in a way that like you shake it up well and it's a really good vinaigrette, if that makes any sense. Yeah, really, really good. Not something I'm going to be playing very often, and I'm not particularly sure where I'm going to put it on my shelf, but cool if you like goth stuff. Next is something that I have needed for a long time. This is some classic doom metal. This is In the Depths of Sorrow and Beyond the Crimson Horizon by Solitude At Turnis. They got a they got the 2-disc digipack reissue treatment on this one, which if you look at prices of proper standalone copies of those two albums, you're probably just going to want to get this one if you don't already have them, because they are way more money than they really should be, because they should have been reissued a long while ago. I don't exactly know why they haven't been properly kept in press, but I find it obnoxious, to be honest with you. I don't really know what the deal is with that. But, so these two albums are the first and second record by Solitude At Turnis. Really, really, really classic doom metal. It's very similar in style to Candlemass, but it kind of carries a bit more of a sorrow as opposed to being so epic and full of grandeur and just bombastic like Candlemass would be in the Messiah era. I would say it's more akin to Epicus style-wise, and it's a really, really dynamite set of records. Now, I don't want you to particularly ask me to pick one or the other on the two albums, because I feel like I probably lean a little bit more towards the Beyond the Crimson Horizon disc, which that's the album cover of that one, and this is the album cover of that one. But I do like both of them quite a bit, but I would still consider the jury to be out as to which one carries my preference as far as which one I'm probably going to listen to more goes. But nonetheless, they're both stellar records. They really, really are. And with how much of a fan I am of that like early Candlemass material, I find it hard to not own this album or set of albums. So if you need these two records, just go pick this up. I promise you won't regret it. Really, really good Solitude At Turnis stuff. Next, a little bit more of the weird stuff here for you real quick. This is going to be Mundanus Imperium with the Spectral Sphere's Coronation. So this is a Norwegian band that were at one point a symphonic black metal band for the first EP, which was 97, that I have sitting up there on the top shelf. And this is an album that is not black metal from them. It is completely clean vocals, and it's kind of whiny, weird clean vocals. It kind of reminds me of like the less exciting parts of Borknagar's like Olden Domain era as far as the clean vocals go. You know how that kind of has that not the most musically talented but really well put together at the same time style of clean vocal. It's not the cleanest style of clean vocal, if that makes any sense to you whatsoever, and it's kind of mixed with all the music of a symphonic black metal, kind of progressive metal, somewhere in that general vicinity. I was a little bit annoyed by the fact that it was not a black metal record, because I have that EP and I picked this up off of that. But one cool thing that they do have on here is a cover of Stargazer by Rainbow. And that is one of my favorite songs ever in the metal genre. And to hear a band that is doing it in the late 90s do it with their, their style a little bit more and a lot more of their tones, I think it sounds really well. It lends really well to their style. I think it fits really, really smack dab in the middle of this record. If I didn't know it was a Rainbow cover, I wouldn't even know that it wasn't one of their songs. It just fits really well. Go check this out if you want something kind of peculiar to listen to. It's a good, like, attack of symphonic black metal with a bit more of a progressive edge and no harsh vocals. Alright, we're going to get a proto-metal record in here. Again, this is Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy. Must have in any respectable metal collection, I think, because this is like some of the building blocks for everything that we love to the day. I do love every Thin Lizzy material, every Thin Lizzy record I have heard, and I was previously saying that every new one I get seems to be my new favorite, but this, compared to Johnny the Fox, is still not as amazing. So Johnny the Fox might be my favorite Thin Lizzy record for the foreseeable future. But this is a great one. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the song The Boys Are Back in Town. I know it's like the big hit, but it's a song that gets stuck in my head all the time, like constantly. The harmonized lead melody is just something that gets to me all the time. Great stuff. But the Romeo and the Lonely Girl is great. Warriors is great. Cowboy Song is a top shelf song. I really like that one a lot too. Just all around great record. Nothing that I need to spend a lot of time on, I don't think. Next, I just needed to fill this in my collection. I have it on tape, not CD, but this is No Prayer for the Dying by Iron Maiden. I picked this up on the cheap, which you probably should too, because it is not the greatest Iron Maiden record by any means. It's not as much of a downer as some people seem to be, though upon my revisitation of getting this copy, I have a less high opinion of it than I did previously. But there are some really cool songs on here, like the song Tail Gunner is really, really great. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter is kind of goofy, but I do kind of like it at the same time. It just kind of, it seems flat. It doesn't seem like they're really chock full of energy and great ideas, this whole record. It's about a 50-50 chance you're going to get a good song or a whatever song. There's nothing particularly bad about it. There's just nothing immensely good as far as I'm concerned when it comes to this record. But, nonetheless, if you're a Maiden fan, you probably should own this one just because you would probably find it in a used bin for $5. So you may as well pick it up. Come on now. All right, two more. I got some Hammerfall, which is No Sacrifice, No Victory. This is just a random one in the middle of the career from 2009. So that would put it at 15 years ago, which is a ridiculous thought to me. But a really, really decent record, I would say. It's more of the same from Hammerfall. They're the kind of band that just kind of keeps pumping out the same record every time with mild production differences, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you're never going to be particularly disappointed, but you're also not going to be intrinsically invigorated by any of the records, I don't think, at least. But, nonetheless, it could be a lot worse. It's going to get put on the shelf, and it's probably not going to get touched too very often, because I have the earlier stuff, which just tends to have more of a youthful vigor to it, which just, I don't know, is in my opinion, it's much more preferential. Really, really decent. nothing spectacular from Hammerfall. And I got one more for you here, and it's going to be a little bit more of the proto-metal stuff. This is Welcome to My Nightmare by Alice Cooper. I've just really been wanting to get more and more into things that influence all the bands that I like, and I feel like the more and more that I get into traditional heavy metal, which has kind of been my newest venture, to like deep dive a little bit more into being, you know, a lot more interesting to me as of late, which is odd because I used to be like mostly a war metal guy and, you know, just really harsh black metal. So I've kind of hit the opposite end of the spectrum as far as what my taste tends to lean to. So having such a freshly grown appreciation for that, learning more about the things that influenced those bands and where they came from is a real treat, honestly. And hearing something like this that came out in 1975 and hearing songs like Cold Ethel and things like that are just, they're shocking. I mean, he is the king of shock rock. It's unquestionable. He was one of the first guys to do it. I mean, there's Screamin' Jay Hawkins that was before him. You could argue that Iggy from Iggy and the Stooges was kind of already doing it, but this brought it to a different level. You know, this became really mainstream. Became really big. Everybody knew who this guy was in the 70s, and I think that's cool. I like the shock factor that he produces. Obviously, being a, you know, a child of the 90s, I've grown up hearing a lot more extreme stuff, so it doesn't exactly hit me like it would if I was 25 in, you know, 1977, as opposed to when I got into the stuff in my teenage years, hearing, you know, Cannibal Corpse for the first time or hearing Suffocation for the first time. That's a lot more shocking musically than this, but I still hold a deep appreciation for the things that built up into being the stuff that I tend to listen to more of. But yeah, really cool stuff, and I plan on getting as much of the early Alice Cooper material as I care to. I might wind up buying all the way up through like Trash, maybe. We'll see. I need to spend more time with it because I really don't want to just buy it and then it sucks, because I know some of the Alice Cooper catalog is particularly laughable. But I'm going to call it at that, y'all, for this collection update here. I have another little stack of goodies right there that I got from Binder and some merch from Binder, so I will talk about that stuff eventually. But after this, I will be back into my power metal collections, then getting on to folk metal. What's after that? After folk metal is traditional metal, then the proto metal, hair and glam. A genre I call crap metal, which is like things that I'm not too excited to talk about. And then I have my punk section. So I don't know. We probably have 10 left, I would say. But yeah, I'll keep y'all posted. I'll see you in the next one. Keep it greasy.